So we're back with another soul-to-soul conversation with Cyprian Diaz. He is a Akashic Records Psychic Astrologer, and we're so excited to have him back. And this time we're talking about astrology, what astrology is, and how astrology can help you in your life. So welcome, Cyprian.
Thank you for having me back, Italia. It's a pleasure once again.
Yeah, I'm so excited. And this time we get to talk about astrology. What a fun topic. And so why don't we let our viewers know, first of all, what was your spiritual awakening process that led you into being an astrologer? How did you go down that road?
Well, first of all, since I was a little kid, I sensed a lot of things and came across a lot of paranormal apparitions, such as dreams, spirits, seeing and hearing, but at the time I didn't know what it meant. By the way, I have an ancestral bloodline with these types of metaphysical and spiritual gifts. And that's dated back to the Philippines, where spirituality is a big thing in these islands. But from that point, when I was a teenager, I used to read magazines, books, monthly horoscopes, even through newspapers, based on my sun sign in Virgo, what it says, what I'm going through, who I am. But I was thinking at the time, there's more to it than just my sun sign in Virgo. So throughout the years during my studies in astrology, I learned that there's 9 other planets in a certain sign besides your sun sign when it comes to your natal chart, which is the birth chart. So from that point on, as I studied astrology through the years, when I went to college, I became a comparative religious studies major. So I have a Bachelor of Arts degree in comparative religious studies. During my studies in San Jose State University, I had a variety of instructors from different cultural and spiritual backgrounds, from Buddhism to Hebrew and to Jewish traditions, you name it. And through these sources, I was introduced to metaphysical and spiritual centers and events such as fairs. And that was my first time dabbling into these things. When I went to these events, I went to past life regression workshops. I received readings as a client and even healings. And from that point on, I wanted to learn more. And from there, I went to spiritual organizations in North County of San Diego when I moved back to Southern California. And when I did, I had mentors that taught me a lot about tapping into my gifts. And from that point on, I did work at Learning Light, but at the same time, I was attending workshops as well. And one day, the program coordinator invited me to do volunteer readings at their annual board meeting. And after that, he invited me to read at the psychic fair in Learning Light.
Mm-hmm. And that's how it all began?
Yes, that's how it all began.
And then, so astrology, and what led you specifically into astrology? Was it learning about doing the horoscopes and all that?
Yes, throughout the years. So I have a certification to become an astrologer, but I was already studying astrology for years before getting certified in that. So if you do a 6-week certification in basic astrology and an 8-week one in predictive, it doesn't end there yet. You have to keep on top of your practice. There's still so much to learn, no matter what level you're at.
Mm-hmm. So what is, for our viewers, what is astrology? What exactly is that?
Astrology is the study of the planets and under the heavenly bodies and the movement of it, and how the energies of these planets and heavenly bodies affect us throughout time.
So how can astrology help somebody? Like, how could it help us?
It can help you work with the current energies according to the current planetary placements in the sky, such as like there's the moon cycles. The moon represents your emotions, your intuition, what makes you feel comfortable, moods.
So each, like, kind of, and the sun represents.
The sun represents your ego, your identity, your whole core personality,
Okay.
who you are, actually.
So I remember when you had done, actually, he had done my natal chart. Thank you. And so maybe walk us through, like, so would you say if somebody is interested in astrology, would it be a good place for them to begin looking at their own natal chart?
Yes, definitely. And for beginners in astrology, when they read a natal chart for the first time, of course, for the most part, they will not fully understand it yet, because there's detail in the chart, like where the planets are placed in which sign, what house it's in. Speaking of which, the planets are the actors, the signs are the roles, and the houses are the scenes. So it's like you're looking at an astrology chart like a theater play.
Oh, I see. Is that an analogy that you use to teach your students about astrology?
Yes.
Okay. So let's say, take my natal chart, for example, right? When you had done mine, could you walk somebody through, like, oh, this means that, or that means that, right?
Yes. So, knowing your chart, since you're my graduate and student in basic astrology, your sun is in Scorpio. So, the Scorpio archetype represents deep. It could be secrets. Speaking of which, every sign has a positive and negative trait about them, so they're not meant to be perfect. They're there to really highlight our strengths and to work more on our weaknesses. So there's a balancing situation with energies there. And Scorpio is a water sign. Water signs are emotion, but it could be a really psychic and investigative sign as well. So they could look really deep, but then it also represents transformation as well. So the sun represents, of course, like I said, ego, your whole core personality, your character. So when it comes to the sun in Scorpio, it's about a person who can be emotionally intense, deep, really, really investigative, and also someone who has a theme of achieving personal power in their lives, because Scorpio represents personal power.
And then the moon, too. The moon means something on somebody's natal chart.
The moon represents your emotions, what makes you comfortable, your intuition, your inner thoughts and feelings. And Cancer, since your moon is in Cancer, Cancer represents just nurturing. It could be like the mother too.
Which I am. I do have a 17-year-old, so yes.
So there's like a lot of feminine energy in that. By the way, Cancer originally rules the moon. So when the moon's in Cancer, it's very, very healing and nurturing. It's very, very catering, and that this is what you see is what you get. What you feel is what you get, and that's with people with the moon in Cancer placement. You could say, oh, they pretty much kind of wear their heart in their sleeves.
Yeah, I would say that's very accurate. And, you know, my main guide, spirit guide, is Archangel Haniel, and she is the high priestess of the moon. And so it makes a lot of sense when you say that. And then so people, when they look at their natal chart, especially just looking at it, you would say, you know, look at your sun sign, look at your moon sign. Is there a third thing that they should look at?
Yes.
Okay.
Speaking of which, the sun, the moon, and the rising/ascendant is your whole personality profile makeup.
So it's rising ascendant is what I would look at next. The sun, the moon, and then the rising ascendant?
Yes.
Okay.
So for beginners, when people ask you, what is your chart like? What is your sign? So for me, I would say I'm a sun in Virgo with a moon in Sagittarius and a Gemini rising.
Okay.
And the rising ascendant is the mask you put onto the world.
Oh.
How you present yourself, first impressions. But the rising ascendant is not a planet. It's the first house cusp, which is the beginning of the first house in a certain sign.
Okay. And can somebody's, what I'm interested in too is, can somebody's sign, like, because I think when I was younger, I was more of a Scorpio, but now I feel like I'm something else. I mean, I still have those characteristics, but I don't have maybe as much of the intensity of a Scorpio anymore. So can people's signs change over the course of their lifetime and depending on what happens to them?
Yes, it can, and that's called the progress chart. So in the progress chart, okay, I want to go back to the natal chart. The natal chart is based on the moment you came out of your mom's womb, where the planets were at that time in the cosmos. So that's your natal chart right there. Because like the planets in the sky are always moving through the signs, which is the heavenly bodies. So the progress chart moves really, really slowly. So think about a typical planetary transit. For instance, the sun moves 30 days through each sign. So in a progress chart, the sun will move 30 years. So 1 day equals 1 year in that format. So since you're a Scorpio, so say you're like in your 40s right now.
Now everybody knows. Yes, I'm 41. As the filming of this video, yes.
So that depending on the degrees of your sun sign, like if you're, since you're 41 already, if you're born with a sun in 15 degrees of Scorpio, it will already be in Libra apparently, your progress, no, I'm sorry, in Sagittarius, your progress sun. So the progress chart represents your growth and how you evolved. So the Sagittarius archetype is about higher education, higher learning. You're a teacher, so that explains it. So you grew up to be more philosophical, positive, expansive, open-minded.
I like all those words. Above. Sure, we'll go with that. Yeah, for sure.
Yes. So it will, when the progress sun moves into the next sign after your natal sun, that'll take another 30 years before it goes on to the next. So like your next progression will be in Capricorn after that. So Capricorn represents goal setting, professionalism, success, money too, because Capricorn's an earth sign. By the way, there's 4 elements. So there's 3 signs in each element. You know, there's water, earth, fire, and air.
Okay, so that's a whole other thing too, another part of that.
Yes.
So what could, I guess, would you suggest somebody start with their natal chart maybe, if they're interested in delving then into the whole world of astrology?
Yes, the natal chart, but alongside the natal chart, if it's going to be confusing for them to read at first, they can learn about the signs, what they represent, the planets, of course, and then the houses.
Are there any recommended books or resources that you would say that you could share with our audience that they could go to learn more about it?
Yes, I highly recommend Jan Spiller, but a lot of her work focuses on the North and the South Node, which are ecliptical orbital points between the sun and the moon.
Okay. Say her name again?
Jan Spiller.
Jan Spiller. What's the name of the book? Do you know? Do you have one particular book that?
There's 3. There's Astrology for the Soul, which represents your spiritual growth, what you're here to spiritually do. And she has another book called New Moon Astrology, which represents abundance. Like, what's your abundance style? When do you need to set intentions? under the new moon, and how you can gain what you need in the long run. And there's also cosmic love, which has to do with relationships, your role in relationships, and how to become a better figure when relating to one another.
So it's using astrology to help with those things, setting intentions, using astrology to help with our relationships, right?
Yes.
And what other ways can astrology help us?
It can help you if you read your chart like over time. Of course, there's others who are not really astrologers, but who have like an adequate knowledge about astrology. Read it periodically or once a week or so. And of course, knowing when planets go retrograde, which means that all the issues that the planet represents goes backwards. It's not going backwards in the cosmos. It looks like it is, but it's just like coming to a temporary halt for a certain amount of time. And that's when you need to rest, recharge, anything that starts with an RE verbiages.
Okay. So retrograde, so when things, I always hear the words, Mercury retrograde, that's popular. So when something is in retrograde, usually what happens in the physical world here? Like, do things, I notice it seems like things either slow down or there was miscommunication, or it seems like whatever you were working on, it just gets halted. Is that about the retrograde then? Is that what's happening?
Yes, for instance, Mercury represents the mind, communication, technology. So when Mercury goes retrograde, which is like the most common one, well, the personal planets besides Mercury are Venus and Mars. So those are the ones that are a big deal. But the other outer social planets like Uranus, Saturn, Jupiter, Pluto, and Neptune aren't much of a big deal because they always go retrograde year round.
Okay.
So when Mercury goes retrograde, phones can like for instance, my smartphone battery drains very quickly.
Yes, I have noticed that as well.
And there's arguments, there's misunderstandings.
Okay.
That's why we have to really, really take it easy on technological devices. Give it a rest.
During the Mercury retrograde.
Yeah, don't do too much traveling or gambling.
Okay. What about you said Venus. Is there a Venus retrograde
Yes.
too? That's pretty common as well.
Yes.
What happens during the Venus metro? Does that have to do with love?
Yes, it does. Because Venus represents relationships,
Okay.
love, money,
Okay.
finances, beauty. But during Venus retrograde, that's when a lot of breakups happen, and that's when that's a time when people get back together too.
Oh, okay. So it can go both ways during the Venus retrograde.
Yes, and it's always advised that don't go out for any beauty treatments.
Oh.
Like maybe a little's fine, but then spending a lot of money on a beauty treatment during Venus retrograde can lead to unfavorable results of like how you would look. Like a beautician could mess up, or like masseuse can mess up. So
well, that's interesting. And then so there's the Mercury one that's common, the Venus, and there was a third one, the Mars retrograde. What happens in the Mars retrograde?
Oh, Mars, it's the planet originally ruled by Aries, so it's like the war planet. It's like the go-getter, the daring one, the athlete, the military fighter. So during Mars retrograde, there can be like fights, arguments, and there could be blockages, and it can make you feel lazy. It can even make you feel lazy or make you OCD or erratic.
Okay, so be gentle on yourself during that time.
Yes.
Now, is there like an app or a website that people can go to find out like when the retrogrades are happening? Is there like a website you recommend,
Yes.
or an app on the phone that people can have on their phone?
Yes, of course. Well, when it comes to astrology sites, there's two I recommend.
Okay.
Astro.com and cafeastrology.com for non-professionals. But my professional services, I have a software on my desktop laptop called Solar Fire to do astrology readings and work. But on a smartphone, AstroGold is a smartphone version of Solar Fire. but it could be handy for non-professionals, people who know a little bit about astrology.
Yeah, that maybe you just want to look up where are the planets right now. You just want just a quick guide thing. But that's what I was wanting for that. Just somebody who could go, oh, we're in, Venus retrograde right now. You know what I mean? Because and being aware of what's happening, with our planetary system, what's going on at the time, and how it can help them. And then, but could you talk more though about your astrology readings and what you offer somebody in the astrology readings?
Yes. Usually for starters, like for first-time clientele, I do a natal chart reading to pinpoint who they really are, what they're really like, and what they're set out to do on this plane. That's why it's called the natal promise.
Natal promise?
Yes.
Okay.
Which never changes because your natal chart never changes. Okay. It's like the snapshot of like the current planets in the cosmos. The moment you come out of your mom's womb.
And then that's the natal promise, or the natal promise is what you're supposed to do with your life or something like that? Like your life purpose or a mission?
Yeah.
Is that involved in that?
It's like the home base.
The home base, okay.
Because when there's also transit charts, which is about predictions.
Okay.
So how it works is throughout a certain time, like today, if you want like some kind of predictive astrology reading, I look at the planets, the current planets in the sky, and I layer it with your natal chart, which is in the center. Okay. There's this thing called aspects in astrology, which means the relationship between two planets. There's always positives and negative ones. Well, the negative ones are just like labeled as challenges, and the positive ones are highlights of where you are shining positive in a positive way. And it helps you guide you through those difficult times regarding what's coming up for you.
And do you do cards too? Like, do you do any astrology reading cards or anything like that? Do you incorporate that sometimes into your readings?
Yes, I do. When it comes to on-site psychic fairs, like Learning Light, where I do my work at, I do astrology oracle cards, tea leaf readings, relationship cartomancy, but my oracle cards are astrology related, and I have one deck that's more about Chinese fortune telling, feng shui. So when I lay out the astrology cards, it can help the clientele tap more into and understand astrology better. That's another way too.
Okay. And can they also do it maybe through video, like through Zoom? Could they do a reading with you through that as well?
Yes, they can.
Okay.
It's an ideal way to do astrology readings. So I can share like through another screen their astrology chart and look at it.
Right.
So that's much more preferable, Skype, Zoom, than a phone reading.
Exactly. So that way you can show your client what everything means, how it's all related, and all of that.
Yes. A phone reading is acceptable too, because you still get to email like your client's chart and what you're talking about, especially when you record the session.
I see. Okay. And so how can people find you if they want to have an astrology reading with you, begin with their natal chart, and maybe even move forward with you? Maybe they want to see their progress chart, or they want to delve deeper with you at more advanced levels with astrology. How can they find you?
Well, first, what I have for now is my email. You can contact me at cyp_diaz@yahoo.com or sip_diaz@yahoo.com. My website, it's still undergoing process before it begins. I also do my readings and workshops at Learning Light Foundation, so you can find me there. And that's in Anaheim, California. And I'm also planning to have my own YouTube channel, hopefully in the near future. So we'll see where divine timing takes me.
Well, you have a lot to share about astrology and the Akashic Records. We also have, if you're interested in the Akashic Records, we have another video about that where Cyprian Diaz, he talks about the Akashic Records as well. So if you're interested in that, you can find that down below in the Soul to Soul Conversations playlist. Well, I just want to say thank you so much, Cyprian, for talking to us today and spending time talking about astrology and how it can help people. And thank you, viewer, for watching today. We really appreciate it. Until next time, take care.
Thank you very much. Have a blessed day.